Hey everyone. Welcome to AfriHeart Stories, your go-to spot for African tales. Don't forget to like, subscribe and drop a comment. Now sit back and enjoy. Nnenna stood before the pastel green walls of what should have been her sanctuary, her fingers brushing the smooth surface as though she could feel the echoes of laughter that never came. The room was immaculate. Ivory lace curtains, a polished mahogany crib, and a mobile of wooden elephants dangling overhead. Yet emptiness permeated every corner. Earlier that morning she had removed the tiny, unworn onesies from their wicker basket and folded them neatly into a cold box, pressing a lingering kiss into the soft cotton. Each garment held a silent promise she'd carried for years, through countless rounds of fertility treatments and mounting disappointment. Across the hall, the clink of silver spoons on porcelain plates drew her back to the dining room, where Deo sat, eyes downcast. He offered a polite nod as he passed the basket containing her breakfast: toast, scrambled eggs. "Morning," she managed, voice gentle. He didn't look up. "Morning." She sat, spoon poised midair. They ate in solemn silence. The years had changed him. At first he had soothed her, cradled her hand after each failed cycle. He had whispered promises of hope, of future families bound by love. But as the months stretched into years, his touches became absent, his words clipped. In the mirror, Nnenna could see the distance in his gaze. She was no longer a partner but a burden. She rose. "I'm leaving," she announced quietly. Deo raised an eyebrow. "Where?" "For work." His lips twisted. "I thought you were taking a sabbatical." "I need to occupy my mind," she replied. "I have a seminar at the university." He shrugged and turned back to his phone, unread messages already stacking in his notifications. In the hallway Nnenna paused, the same breath trembling her chest. She wondered, not for the first time, if he remembered how she looked when she laughed, or how her voice trembled with excitement when she discovered a new research article. He had once been her greatest champion, her proud husband. Outside, the overcast sky pressed down like a burden, gray clouds swirling with silent sympathy. Nnenna buttoned her coat, stepping into the damp air. Auto rickshaws beeped as they navigated the bustling Lagos street, vendors calling out their wares. The world moved around her, vivid and unrelenting, indifferent to her private agony. Today she sought a fragile hope. As she walked, her phone buzzed. A message from her friend Uche: "Thinking of you today. Big day, remember?" It was a small spark of warmth. She smiled faintly, thumb hovering over the screen before typing back, "Thank you." She tucked the phone away and continued, each step heavy but determined. The clinic loomed ahead, its large windows reflecting the city's pulse. Inside awaited Dr. Nnenna, whose silent gaze had always seen beyond her womb. Today she would face another round of examinations, but for the first time in years she felt more than fear. She felt resolve. The chatter in Deo's family compound was relentless by the time Nnenna arrived. She paused at the gate of the sprawling courtyard, inhaling a breath of humid air that carried laughter, gossip, and the clink of glass tumblers. Auntie Nwaka's mahogany mansion rose before her like a fortress. Its carved pillars and ornate ironwork spoke of power. Its terraced gardens bloomed with a confidence Nnenna envied. Inside, women in brightly patterned wrappers clustered around silver trays of puff-puff and jollof rice. Men lounged on wicker chairs, sipping palm wine and debating politics. The matriarch perched at the head of a low divan, her stern eyes drifting over Nnenna as though she weighed her soul. "It's time," whispered Chioma, Deo's cousin, as they entered. Nnenna's heart hammered. She followed Chioma to the low settee opposite Auntie Nwaka. Deo remained silent in his seat, arms folded like a judge's gavel. Auntie Nwaka tapped her beaded fan. "Nnenna, dear, you know why we're here." Her voice was soft, but every word cut like a blade. Nnenna forced a nod, wrists cold against her skirt. The family doctor had been summoned earlier, confirming infertility. Nnenna knew her fate: public humiliation. 7 years without a child and still no blessing, Auntie Nwaka announced. She leaned close. "This family needs heirs." An awkward hush fell. Auntie's daughters glanced sideways, her nephews lowered their heads. Nnenna summoned a breath. "I've tried every treatment, every prayer." Deo finally spoke. "It's not enough." His words landed like stones. Auntie Nwaka flicked her fan. "You may return to your parents' house. We cannot wait indefinitely." A murmur rippled through the courtyard. Nnenna's throat tightened. She realized then the cruel truth: they saw her as less than human. Chioma stood abruptly. "She's done everything possible." Her voice trembled. Auntie Nwaka fixed Chioma with a glare. Loyalty to blood comes first. Nnenna rose, skirts rustling like dry leaves. The world blurred. Yet she held her chin high. "I will not beg," she declared, voice clear despite the tremor. "I will find my own way." She stepped past Deo without looking back. The gathering felt like stones pounding against her ribs. Outside, the Lagos sun beat down. The heat matched the scarlet flush on her cheeks. When she reached the gate, she turned. The family compound stood silent and still. She raised her head, tasting freedom and fear. She whispered to the empty street, "I will not be broken." The fluorescent lights of the fertility clinic corridor flickered overhead as Nnenna braced herself for another round of injections. It was the 7th year since she and Deo first began trying to conceive, a journey that had begun with optimism but now felt like a relentless test of endurance. Each appointment replayed in her mind, the antiseptic smell of the exam room, the sterile blue gowns, and the sympathetic but clinical demeanor of the staff. Her first cycle had filled her with hope. Dr. Nnenna had promised that modern medicine could overcome almost any obstacle. She had undergone blood tests, ultrasounds, and tiny surgical procedures, all while clinging to the possibility of a positive test. When the results came back negative, she held the tear-stained paper in her trembling hands and wondered if her future would ever include the laugh of a child. Cycle after cycle, she submitted to needle after needle. Insulin-thin syringes delivered hormones that rattled her body with mood swings and cravings. She tracked every pill, every injection in a journal that read like a medical log. Day 1 baseline scan, Day 5 estrogen levels, Day 12 egg retrieval, Day 14 embryo transfer, Day 18 blood test. 17 distinct procedures, each named and dated, none successful. Between cycles she lectured and published work, yet each colleague's pregnancy announcement echoed her own yearning. Deo's support had dwindled over the years. Initially he attended clinics by her side, holding her hand as the needle pricked her skin. Over time he excused himself with business trips and late-night meetings, his phone calls reduced to brief check-ins. In his absence she learned to carry her sorrow privately, wrapping her pain in professional composure. One afternoon after her 3rd failed IVF cycle, Nnenna stood outside the clinic doors, phone in hand. The nurse, Pulumi, approached with gentle eyes. "Results are in," she said softly. Nnenna nodded, bracing for the familiar ache. When Pulumi whispered the verdict, Nnenna felt a quiet rage stir within. She wanted to scream at the injustice, to rail against a body that refused to cooperate, but instead she inhaled and exhaled, steadying herself. That evening she returned to the empty house they shared. The silence was heavy. She placed the syringes in a medical waste container and stared at them. 17 felt like 17 betrayals. But as she cleared the empty vials, a sense of clarity emerged. Her worth was not measured by scientific failure. She wiped her eyes, straightened her spine, and decided that regardless of the outcome, she would not let defeat define her. She opened her journal, pen poised, and wrote, "I am more than this struggle. I choose myself." The words were simple, but to her they were powerful, a vow that transcended the sting of every needle, every dashed hope. She would forge a path beyond expectations and redefine her destiny. Tonight she resolved she would rest her body. Tomorrow she would conquer a different challenge. They had chosen Azure Bistro for its reputation, private alcoves, sculpted orchids, and soft jazz drifting between tables. Nnenna wore the emerald dress Deo had admired during their honeymoon, its satiny sheen reflecting the candlelight. She smoothed a crease in the fabric, excitement fluttering in her chest. Tonight marked the completion of her 8th treatment cycle, and she hoped for solace in his arms. Deo arrived late, tie askew, gaze fixed on the tabletop. He kissed her cheek, barely meeting her eyes. "Traffic," he muttered, sliding into the seat opposite. The waiter approached, reciting specials. Nnenna ordered her favorite lobster bisque. Deo asked for steak, medium rare. The table felt smaller as they spoke. Conversation turned to academic conferences, her upcoming lecture in Port Harcourt, his planned investment summit in Abuja. Their words danced around unspoken truths, each phrase a barrier. When the waiter filled their glasses with crimson wine, Nnenna caught the unsettling expression in Deo's dark eyes. He raised his glass. "To us," he said, voice hollow. She mirrored him, hoping the toast would soften the tension. Instead he lowered his gaze and reached into his pocket. With deliberate precision, he extracted a crisp white envelope and placed it atop her plate. A hush settled. The wax seal bore her family crest. Nnenna's fingers trembled as she picked it up. Deo's face was impassive. "I thought you should have this," he said flatly. Her heart pounded. She tore the seal, unfolding the letter. The first line stabbed at her core. I can no longer pretend. She skimmed. This marriage cannot continue. I am filing for divorce. No warmth, no regret, only cold finality. The words blurred as tears welled in her eyes. A waiter hovered. Deo nodded towards the envelope. The waiter retreated, leaving them in a bubble of silent agony. Nnenna's voice cracked. Why? She blinked, tasting salt on her lips. He swallowed, jaw clenched. I've asked myself that too, he admitted, tone distant. I can't watch you suffer, and I can't deal with the pity any longer. She closed the letter, chest heaving. The ivory linen pressed against her cheek as she sat back, the envelope still clutched in her hand. The flickering candle cast dancing shadows across his stony face. All around them, couples laughed and toasted, oblivious to her breaking heart. Nnenna rose, leaving the untouched lobster bisque and half-filled glass behind. She dropped a wad of naira on the table and whispered, Keep your pity. He remained seated, eyes widening at her strength. She turned on her heel and walked away into the humid Lagos night, raindrops beginning to fall as if mourning. Her tears mingled with the rain, each drop washing away a memory of his absence. Her phone buzzed with a message from Dr. Nnenna. Results are ready. Call me. Clutching the divorce papers, she realized her path lay elsewhere. Tonight would mark an end, but also the beginning of her own story. Nnenna's phone slipped from her fingertips as she watched the auto rickshaw speed away, headlights fading into the night. Clutching the divorce papers, she navigated narrow alleys, each step echoing against brutalist concrete walls. The walls of her former home remained in her mind, a fortress that had once promised security. Now she had nowhere to go. She approached the women's shelter on Akinton Street, its sign flickering. A guard peered through a barred window. Name? He asked, voice gruff. She held up her ID and PhD certificate, laminated. He studied them without expression and slid open the gate. One night only, he said. She nodded, grateful despite humiliation. The dormitory was sparse, rows of metal bunk beds under bulbs. A shelf held donated backpacks and cereal boxes. She placed her belongings, a simple tote bag, her journal, and her degree certificate, on an empty bed. Nearby, women whispered over thin blankets, their faces lined with hardship and hope. A woman with graying hair and warm eyes approached. I'm Saad, she said softly. First time? Nnenna nodded. They'll give you breakfast at 6. Lunch midday. Dinner late evening. Showers at scheduled times. She paused. Don't let it break you. Later, wrapped in a thin blanket, Nnenna reflected on her journey. She had earned a master's degree in renewable energy. She had published research. Now she couldn't pay her rent. The irony stung acutely. Yet she remembered her own words, I am more than this struggle. Tonight those words felt tenuous. In the morning, women lined up for porridge. Nnenna received her bowl from a volunteer, Pastor Ayabo, whose gentle smile suggested faith. She bowed her head in silent gratitude, scooping the warm grains with trembling hands. Across from her, a young mother whispered to her child, soft lullabies in Igbo, while cradling a plastic tumbler of juice. They shared stories. A teacher who lost her job. A former trader whose business was burned. Each tale carried pain but resilience. Nnenna listened, heart swelling with empathy and inspiration. She realized that credentials meant little if a person lacked a sense of belonging. At midday, she used the shelter's one computer to send emails. She reached out to former colleagues, to Dr. Nnenna, to potential collaborators. Each keystroke felt heavy but necessary. She submitted a request for a temporary research assistant position and applied for a fellowship abroad. She paused only to console a woman in tears over a missed call. That night, she returned to her bunk and retrieved her degree certificate. She smoothed the edges of the plastic sleeve, tracing each letter of her name. Her achievements were more than ink on paper. They represented her intellect and courage. She whispered, I will rise even here. Outside, rain pattered on the roof, a soothing lullaby to accompany her resolve. As she closed her eyes, Nnenna vowed, this shelter would not be her final address. Tomorrow she would reclaim her dignity, and chart a new destiny. Nnenna sat in the softly lit consultation room, the scent of antiseptic mingling with fresh lilies on the side table. Dr. Nnenna's office felt less like a medical clinic and more like a thoughtful sanctuary. Books on psychology lined the walls alongside fertility journals. He offered her a warm smile as she took her seat. Good morning, Nnenna, he began, voice calm. How are you feeling today? She forced a polite smile. Anxious, she admitted softly. but hopeful. Her heart fluttered with a mix of fear and determination. He nodded, scanning her chart. I reviewed your progress. You're resilient. But there's something I want to discuss beyond the medical protocol. He leaned forward, eyes gentle. Tell me about your emotional journey. Surprised, Nnenna stared at him. I thought this was about tests and hormones. It is, he replied. But your mind and spirit matter as much as your body. Infertility wounds more than a womb, it can scar the soul. He paused. I want to help you heal fully. Nnenna hesitated, the memory of her blog's first entry surfacing. She cleared her throat. I felt broken. Invisible. Like my worth vanished with every failed cycle. Dr. Ikenna closed the file. You are not invisible. You are remarkable. His gaze held hers. I'm launching a support initiative, a group for women facing similar battles. Will you join me in shaping it? Her chest tightened. He believed in her strength more than she believed in herself. Yes. I would like that. Over the following weeks, Nnenna attended the pilot sessions. Women gathered in a circle, sharing fears and hopes. Ada spoke of feeling purposeless. Another mother grieved multiple miscarriages. Nnenna listened, offering an empathetic ear. She rediscovered her voice. One afternoon after the session, Dr. Ikenna showed her a whiteboard filled with plans. We'll call it Cradle of Courage, he said. A place where women find support and purpose. She wrote the name underneath, smiling at the symbolism. It feels like home. He placed a hand on her shoulder. Your story will carry others forward. His sincerity moved her. In that moment, the clinic's sterile walls transformed into a beacon of hope. Walking home, Nnenna reflected on his words. She had come for fertility treatment, but found something more, validation of her humanity. The world defined her by her womb. Dr. Ikenna saw her soul. At dusk, she sat at her desk, pen poised over a new journal entry. She began, Today I was seen, not for my pain but for my potential. Tears of gratitude blurred the words. She closed the journal and whispered into the silent room, I will not be defined by loss. For the first time in years, she allowed laughter to surface as Ada joked about medical mishaps. The memory of the smile, the embrace of a fellow sufferer, threads weaving her back together. Each story mirrored resilience, proving transformation springs from shared vulnerability. Hope bloomed in her heart once more. Nnenna returned to her small apartment, walls bare except for a single sea-green canvas. She sat at the desk, laptop open, fingers hovering above keys. For years, her journal had been private, a repository of pain and hope. Tonight, she decided anonymity no longer served her. Her blog, Diary of the Forgotten Woman, launched with a simple post. I am Nnenna. I am infertile. I am not broken. She attached a photo, an empty cradle in soft focus. Then she pressed publish. Within minutes, notifications chimed. Comments appeared, thousands of them, each a story of silent suffering. A woman in Kano wrote of 5 miscarriages. A doctor in Accra shared his patient's heartbreak. A mother in Port Elizabeth confessed relief in separation from childless stigma. The screen glowed with solidarity. Heart-pounding, Nnenna scrolled. One comment read, I have felt invisible for so long. Thank you for speaking. Another, you are my hero. Tears blurred her vision. She realized her truth resonated across borders and cultures. Over the next week, the blog became a refuge. Women posted poems, photos of pill bottles, and messages of support. The Brazilian volunteer, Clarissa, detailed her adoption journey. A Midwestern teacher, Angela, described her grief as doubly isolating. Each narrative wove into a tapestry of shared resilience. Nnenna felt both elation and vulnerability. She maintained anonymity, using only the initial N. She worried about backlash from her family if they discovered the raw confessions. Yet the pain of secrecy paled beside the power of collective healing. Late one night, she received a direct message from Ada. Because of you, I decided to live. Nnenna typed back, voice shaking, your life matters. She pressed send, hands trembling. When Deo called to check in, a brief message, no appointment, she felt a pang but found strength in her newfound purpose. She texted back, I'm busy changing lives. She smiled at her typo, a reminder of humanity. As readership grew to tens of thousands, media outlets noticed. An editor from Women's Voice magazine offered to feature her story. She demurred, I'm not ready. Instead, she focused on moderation, approving posts, responding to messages, and writing weekly reflections. Her next entry read, Today, a young man from Nairobi thanked me for giving his mother hope. She paused, eyes shining. She concluded, empathy is the most fertile ground. The words felt prophetic. In a dim cafe she reread her entries. The empty chair across from her reminded her of absence, yet she felt full. Each keystroke carried purpose beyond womb and wedding vows. She had transformed silent suffering into a collective voice. Closing the laptop, she whispered into the empty room, I am seen. And for the first time in years she believed it. Her parents, skeptical, found the blog. They read her words, tears streaming as they understood her anguish. That turning point, Nnenna realized her voice could bridge the chasm between misunderstanding and compassion. She was no longer alone, she became a beacon of hope. In the heart of a rural village, Ada knelt by the thatched hut's doorway, phone in hand, tears streaming. At 15 she faced the weight of infertility stigma, an unlikely scenario, but her mother's endless miscarriages had cast a shadow over the household. Village gossip branded her mother barren. Villagers whispered that misfortune ran in the family. Ada internalized their disdain, thinking her existence a curse. That night, under a single bulb's dim glow, Ada scrolled social media until she discovered Nnenna's anonymous blog. The post titled, I am not broken, caught her eye. With trembling thumb, she tapped the link and read the words that would reshape her life. I am Nnenna. I am infertile. I am not broken. She read on, devouring Nnenna's reflections on shame, resilience, and self-worth. Each sentence resonated as if the writer spoke directly to her soul. Ada felt a warmth blooming within, her despair dimmed. She typed a comment, fingers shaking, because of you I chose to live. A notification chimed on Nnenna's phone. Sitting at Cradle of Courage headquarters, Nnenna smiled through tears when she saw Ada's message. She replied, You matter, Ada. Stay brave. They exchanged messages, forging a bond across continents. Inspired by their connection, Nnenna invited Ada to share her story on the blog's forum. Ada wrote, I thought my future was doomed. Now I see hope. Her words encouraged thousands more to open up. Back in the village, Ada stood before her mother's grave, an embroidered handkerchief pressed against her heart. She whispered, We are not broken. The wind stirred dry grass, carrying her vow outward. Neighbors paused, listening. Rumors of a young girl's bravery spread, altering perceptions. The transformation rippled further when Kara, a volunteer with Cradle of Courage, visited the village. She organized a gathering beneath the ancient baobab tree. Women of all ages descended, sharing laughter and tears. Ada introduced Nnenna's blog, distributing printouts of posts translated into their local language. Mothers dusted off old prayer beads. Fathers nodded, exchanging solemn glances. The stigma cracked. Ada's mother, frail yet dignified, stood and spoke, voice wavering, My child taught me to choose life. The crowd erupted in applause, a celebration of survival rather than pity. Weeks later, Ada's village applied for support from Cradle of Courage. Plans for a community center took shape. When she delivered her first speech, voice steady, she looked at the faces uplifted by her courage. She realized that a single message can echo across landscapes, sparking healing where despair once reigned. That evening, Nnenna reflected on the power of connection. Then she whispered to the night, This is only the beginning. Across continents, two hearts beat in shared hope and true solidarity. Word of mouth spread quickly. Nnenna's modest living room, once the scene of lonely conference calls, transformed into a sanctuary. Plush cushions lined the floor beneath soft lantern light. Women arrived, weary and tentative, clutching coffee mugs and journals. Some greeted Nnenna with hesitant smiles. Others hesitated at the threshold, their eyes reflecting years of stigma. She welcomed each with a gentle embrace. Your story matters, she said as she guided them inside. This is our circle. On the low table, fresh ginger tea steamed beside platters of akara and plantain chips. Auntie Helen, a recent widow and seasoned storyteller, shared how she had lost twins at 20. Yvonne, a corporate attorney, spoke of colleagues whispering about childlessness as career sacrifice. Each confession hung heavy in the air, yet also sparked solidarity. Nnenna listened, nodding and offering tissues. When the circle reached Ada's turn via video call, the room hushed. Ada's youthful face filled the screen, framed by her village's dusty landscape. She thanked Nnenna for giving her purpose and revealed plans to start a youth support group. Voices in the room cheered. Amid the emotional ebb and flow, Nnenna introduced a whiteboard, Our next step, Cradle of Courage Community Center. She sketched floor plans and budget estimates. Women leaned forward, offering ideas. Counseling workshops, crafts for fundraising, partnerships with local clinics. Later, as night fell, a knock sounded at the door. Nnenna peered through the peephole to see a tall man holding a camera. She hesitated, then opened. He introduced himself. Obi, a documentary filmmaker from Lagos Arts Collective. I've been following your blog in circles, he said quietly. Your story deserves a larger audience. She invited him in. As they talked, she described the solidarity, the shared tears, and the courage blooming among the women. Obi recorded their voices, capturing raw emotion. He set up his equipment in a corner, respectful and unobtrusive. Over the next week, Obi filmed sessions. Women sharing stories under candlelight, Ada's village group beneath the baobab, Nnenna teaching leadership workshops. His footage revealed a movement fueled by authenticity and empathy. When Obi delivered a first cut, Nnenna watched with bated breath alongside Dr. Ikenna and Ada. The 40-minute film traced her journey from abandonment to advocacy. Auntie Helen's tearful testimony, Ada's triumphant smile, Nnenna's resolve. They appeared on screen like promises fulfilled. Tears slipped down Nnenna's cheeks. She turned to Obi. It's beautiful. Her voice trembled. Will this help others? He nodded. This will spark conversations worldwide. True to his word, the documentary premiered online. Views climbed into the hundreds of thousands within days. Comments poured in, professionals, students, grandmothers, people moved by her courage. Requests for support group blueprints flooded her inbox. She smiled into the night, poised to transform every tear into a beacon of hope. Nnenna answered her phone, the soft ringtone contrasting with her racing heart. On the other end, Obi's voice crackled with excitement. Nnenna? It's happening. Netflix wants to feature your story in their Women of Courage series. She blinked, disbelief flooding her senses. Netflix? Are you serious? Obi laughed. Completely. They saw the initial cut. They want to commission a full-length documentary. They believe your journey and the movement you sparked can heal the world. Her fingers shook as she settled onto the sofa. This is unbelievable. He continued, they'll fly a production crew to Lagos next month. They want interviews with Ada, Dr. Ikenna, the women from your first support circle. They're offering a significant budget. This could amplify your message globally. Tears welled. She closed her eyes, imagining scenes of her story reaching millions. 20,000 viewers became millions overnight. Conversations would ignite across continents. Women unheard would find their voices. When she hung up, Nnenna sat in stunned silence. The living room, filled with cushions and whiteboards, felt smaller and grander at once. She walked to the whiteboard where she had sketched community center plans. She drew a new column, Netflix documentary. Morning light filtered through lace curtains as Nnenna convened her core team in the living room. Dr. Ikenna arranged chairs. Ada joined via video link, her face alight. I can't believe it, Ada whispered. Believe it, Nnenna replied, voice steady. Now we prepare. They planned interview questions. Memory of abandonment, turning point moments, triumphs and failures. They mapped filming locations. The shelter on Akinton Street, the original fertility clinic, Ada's village beneath the baobab, the first tiny support circle. Later that afternoon, Nnenna sat at her desk, drafting an email to Netflix's executive producer. She described her vision, a narrative woven with authenticity and hope. She attached her credentials, blog metrics, and Obi's initial footage. Her heart pounded as she clicked send. Obi and I also reviewed logistics. We drafted a shooting schedule, lined up translators for local dialects, and arranged lodging near the clinic. Producers requested B-roll of Lagos sunrise. Additionally, Dr. Ikenna offered to narrate a segment on emotional healing, lending his credibility. Ada volunteered to introduce each section, bridging continents. Their contributions promised to personalize every frame. Days passed slowly. Then one crisp morning an email arrived. Welcome to the Women of Courage series, let's change the world together. It was signed with the Streaming Giants logo. The team celebrated with tea and sweet donuts. Women cheered, hugging one another. Tears of joy mingled with laughter. That evening, Nnenna gazed at her reflection in the window. The Lagos skyline shimmered like distant fireflies. Her journey from silent suffering to global platform felt surreal. She placed a hand on her heart. This is only the beginning, she whispered. She picked up her journal and wrote, Today I answered the call that will echo across the world. Then she closed the book, ready for the next chapter to unfold. The grand hall buzzed with anticipation as Nnenna stepped up to unveil the plaque for Cradle of Courage's first official center. Rows of bright-eyed women, survivors of stigma, sorrow, and shame, filled the seats, their faces reflecting hope. Dr. Nnenna stood at her side, offering a steady hand. Behind them, a banner read, "Legacy doesn't always cry." Nnenna cleared her throat, voice steady. "When I began this journey, I measured success by a positive test," she said. "But I learned that legacy isn't only in diapers. It's in every soul we lift." The crowd erupted in applause, some brushing away tears. She smiled, eyes misty, as the first tears of triumph traced down her cheeks. After the ceremony, a young lawyer approached her. "I've waited years for a space like this," she whispered, clutching Nnenna's hand. "You gave me courage." Nnenna knelt to meet her gaze. "Your story gave me purpose," she answered. "We rise together." Later, packing away speeches and ribbons, Nnenna found herself alone with Dr. Nnenna. He studied her with pride. "You've built more than a clinic," he said softly. "You've built a community." She exhaled, relief and gratitude mingling in her chest. "All because I refused to be buried by shame," she replied, unlocking a new chapter where her legacy would live in every life she touched. A sliver of morning light filtered through the curtains as Nnenna sat on the edge of her bed, trembling. 2 faint pink lines appeared on the pregnancy test. Her breath caught. "Impossible," she whispered, jotting the date in her journal, May 18th. Her world tilted between disbelief and joy. She dialed Dr. Nnenna's clinic. His calm voice answered immediately. "Good morning, Nnenna." She paused. "I think I'm pregnant." Silence crackled. "Come in today," he replied. "We'll confirm." She clenched the phone, tears of relief slipping down her cheeks. At the clinic, the ultrasound screen displayed a tiny flicker, her heartbeat. "There are actually 2, he announced with wonder. "Twins." Nnenna's hand flew to her mouth. "Maya and Muna," she breathed, naming them as if they were already present. Later she returned home and dialed Ada. When Ada answered, Nnenna exclaimed, "Girls are coming." Ada whooped in celebration, voices echoing hope across continents. Nnenna sank into the couch, heart full. 2 pink lines had rewritten her story, proving that miracles sometimes bloom from the deepest wounds. Thunder rolled across the Lagos skyline as contractions surged. The hospital corridor lights flickered, matching Nnenna's racing pulse. Dr. Nnenna led her into the delivery suite, where midwives prepared the room. "You're doing wonderfully," he encouraged, checking her monitor. "Breathe." Between pushes, Nnenna's thoughts flashed to every obstacle she had overcome. The judgment, the emptiness, the resolve. Outside, rain pounded against windows like applause from the sky. She squeezed her journal's tattered cover, her talisman of strength. One more push. Dr. Nnenna called. With a final cry, the first baby emerged. A perfect girl wailing into the world. "Maya," Nnenna whispered, tears mingling with sweat. Minutes later, a second cry. Another daughter, Muna, arrived, her cry softer but just as fierce. Holding them, Nnenna felt an overwhelming surge of love. The midwife swaddled each twin in pastel blankets. 2 beautiful survivors, she announced. Dr. Nnenna smiled through happy tears. "You brought them here with courage." Nnenna kissed their tiny heads. "Welcome home, my miracles." He appeared on her doorstep unannounced, shoulders slumped and eyes haunted. Deo's once proud frame looked diminished by regret. Nnenna opened the door, Maya and Muna cooing in her arms. Deo froze. "I've followed the documentary," he began, voice rough. "I've watched what I lost." He swallowed. "I'm sorry, Nnenna. I was cruel." She studied him silently, the guards around her heart still firm. He knelt, tears brimming. "I thought I was helping by leaving, but I only added to your pain." Nnenna cradled Muna. The twins squirmed, seeking warmth. She held her breath. Finally she spoke. "You taught me to be strong, by abandoning me." Her tone was gentle yet unwavering. "I found purpose in my own story. You can be part of it only if you truly stand with us." Deo nodded, ashamed but hopeful. She stepped aside and let him hold the twins, their tiny fingers curling around his. The moment was fragile, an offering of grace. He kissed Nnenna's cheek. "Thank you for letting me try." She managed a small smile, watching him embrace fatherhood anew. A hush fell over the global summit hall as Nnenna took the podium. The moderator introduced her. From tragedy to triumph, she became the woman they tried to bury, and rose unstoppable. Camera lights flickered. She inhaled deeply. 7 years ago, she began, voice firm, I was told I was worthless. A ripple of empathy passed through the audience. She continued, weaving her journey from infertility and exile to healing and empowerment. She spoke of every woman who felt unseen, dedicating her speech to them. Midway she paused and lifted a photograph of Maya and Muna, now toddling at her feet backstage. "My legacy is not just this center," she said, voice cracking with emotion. "It's every life I inspire, every heart I touch." Applause thundered as delegates rose in ovation. Afterward, dignitaries surrounded her. Journalists, activists, even representatives from NGOs. A senator slipped her a pen inscribed, "Never bury a dream." She accepted it, nodding with gratitude. Outside the hall, cameras flashed and headlines flashed her name, "The woman they tried to bury." Later that night, Nnenna returned to her twins, their laughter echoing down the hallway. She kissed their foreheads and whispered, "You are my living legacy." In her heart, she knew this was proof. No matter how deep the grave of shame, hope could always resurrect a life. Auntie Nwaka's health had declined precipitously in recent months. The ruthless matriarch who once commanded the household from her ornate divan now made her apology from a narrow hospital bed. Nnenna stood at the foot of the bed, heart pounding with a mixture of dread and compassion. The pained rise and fall of Auntie Nwaka's chest sounded fragile, as if even breathing took great effort. Her aunt's once imperious voice trembled as she reached for Nnenna's hand. "I was wrong," she whispered. "I judged you harshly." The lines around her eyes softened. "In my pride, I forgot what it means to show mercy." Nnenna sat beside the bed, folding Auntie's frail hand within her own. Memories flooded back. The day she was expelled from the family home, the scornful gaze that had followed her, the cruel words that echoed for years. She inhaled slowly, imagining each breath as a thread of forgiveness weaving its way between them. Auntie Nwaka closed her eyes, her eyelashes quivering. "When I saw you suffer, I feared our shame. I lost sight of your humanity." She paused, gasping as pain flared across her face. A nurse adjusted her and the beeping monitors punctuated the hush. Nnenna stroked her aunt's hand, voice gentle. "You didn't bury me," she said quietly. "You taught me strength. And now you teach me grace." Tears blurred her vision as memories of her journey, from abandonment to advocacy, shimmered like distant stars. Auntie Nwaka's lips quivered in faint relief. "I hope you can forgive me," she said, voice barely audible. Nnenna swallowed past the lump in her throat. "I forgive you," she said firmly. She pressed a gentle kiss to her aunt's forehead, feeling the warmth of reconciliation. When she left the hospital that night, the rain had begun to fall softly, each drop a benediction. Nnenna paused beneath the canopy of an old mango tree, letting the rain wash away the weight of resentment. In her hand she carried a single white lily, a token of peace. The next morning, Nnenna gathered volunteers to deliver flowers and reading materials to Auntie Nwaka. The matriarch's eyes brightened at the sight of children's books. Nnenna read healing poems aloud as her aunt listened in silence. Later that afternoon, Nnenna received a message from Ada. "My mother smiled today finally." Smiling at the text, Nnenna replied, "Mercy multiplies." She reflected on how forgiveness had not only repaired a family relationship but also demonstrated the heart behind Cradle of Courage's mission. Back at the center, she shared the story with the community circle. Women joined hands around her, acknowledging that healing begins within. Auntie Nwaka's apology echoed in the hall, not as a singular act but as a ripple that reminded everyone that compassion can overturn shame. As the sun set over the center, Nnenna placed the white lily in a vase labeled Hope, where it joined countless bouquets symbolizing new beginnings. She whispered into the warm evening air, "Forgiveness is our greatest legacy," softly. The day the documentary premiered, Nnenna awoke to an endless stream of notifications on her phone. Comments, shares, and messages cascaded like a digital waterfall. She blinked at the screen, reading words that resonated deep within her. "I watched this with tears in my eyes," she told my story, "this healed me." Each testimony felt like a balm to her soul. Obi's film had captured the essence of Cradle of Courage: raw honesty, shared vulnerability, and unyielding resilience. He had threaded scenes of her solitary tears into a tapestry of collective hope. Viewers from Lagos to London to Lahore wrote from every time zone. Women across continents wept openly, grateful for a voice that mirrored their own private agony. At the center, volunteers gathered around a large monitor as the final credits rolled. Ada wore a radiant smile as she read a comment from a young woman in Nairobi. "I almost gave up, but this film reminded me I matter." Dr. Ikenna adjusted his glasses, his eyes glistening. "We've tapped into something profound," he murmured. In New York, a solo mother messaged Nnenna, "I finally stopped blaming myself for infertility." In Mumbai, a group chat buzzed, "Let's organize a screening." Across South America, a health worker organized translation subtitles so the film could reach indigenous communities. The response was universal, a torrent of tears, gratitude, and determination. Nnenna spent the day replying to messages. She typed slowly, savoring each word. "You are not alone," she wrote to a grandmother in Accra. The grandmother responded, "Your story gave me peace." Tears welled in Nnenna's eyes. She closed the phone and inhaled deeply, aware of the magnitude of what had been unleashed. Later, during a live Q&A arranged by an international women's network, Nnenna answered questions from journalists. "What surprised me most was the global resonance," she said, voice unwavering. "Infertility silences women everywhere. Our tears spoke a universal language." Her answer earned a standing ovation from the virtual audience. That evening she convened her core team. They pored over analytics. View counts skyrocketed into the millions, donations poured in to expand the healing centers, grassroots support groups formed in city parks and church basements. Plans were drawn for a mobile app to connect women in remote areas with counselors and resources. As midnight approached, Nnenna retreated to her study, where framed letters and newspaper clippings lined the walls. She stood before a large world map covered with pins marking new Cradle of Courage hubs. With a marker, she added pins for Anchorage, Lisbon, and Sydney. Each pin represented a community transformed by her story. She closed her journal and wrote, "Today, 1,000,000 women cried together, and from those tears, a river of change was born." The words held the weight of every emotion channeled through Obi's lens. She placed the journal on her desk, phone silent at last. In the hush that followed, she whispered, "Thank you, sisters," and let herself feel the depth of collective healing. We remain united, unstoppable. As the sun peeked over the horizon in Lagos, Nnenna reviewed the schedule for the week. Inaugurations in 12 new countries from Egypt to Argentina. What began as a modest living room circle had become a global phenomenon. She marveled at how a single story of resilience had ignited a network spanning multiple continents. Her first stop was Johannesburg. In a former warehouse converted into a vibrant community center, local volunteers awaited under banners reading "Cradle of Courage South Africa." Salome, a fierce advocate, greeted Nnenna with a warm embrace. "We're ready," Salome said, her voice ringing with determination. "Our women deserve this sanctuary." The inauguration ceremony featured traditional dances and testimonies from survivors whose tears had fueled the movement. Next, Nnenna flew to Cairo, where the center's facade bore Arabic calligraphy beneath a stylized lotus. Fatima, a scholar and poet, introduced her to a packed auditorium. Over tea with jasmine steam rising, Fatima shared concerns about cultural barriers. Nnenna listened, nodding. "We adapt," she promised. "This movement grows by honoring every tradition." In Buenos Aires, volunteers organized a street festival. Tango dancers twirled beneath streamers. Impromptu speeches echoed from a makeshift stage. Local activists recited Spanish translations of blog entries. Among them, Marisol, a journalist, declared, "Infertility is a quiet epidemic. Today we speak openly." The crowd erupted in cheers as Nnenna cut a ribbon, officially opening the center. Throughout each country, one constant remained: safe circles where women could share their stories without judgment. In Delhi, under the shade of a mango tree, participants gathered on woven mats, tea in hand. "Your blog saved me," the youngest member whispered. In Toronto, a bilingual session welcomed immigrant women, bridging language gaps with empathy. Behind the scenes, Dr. Ikenna coordinated telemedicine sessions, training local counselors via video calls. Ada managed outreach on social media, posting daily updates in multiple languages. Nnenna observed her team's seamless collaboration and felt pride swell in her chest. Amid the whirlwind, she reflected on her own journey. From the trauma of divorce papers on a restaurant table to standing on global stages, she had transformed pain into purpose. In each country, laughter and tears blended into healing. The movement's heart beat in diverse rhythms yet pulsed with a shared cadence of hope. Upon her return to Lagos, she convened the team beneath the original mango tree where she once found solace. They gathered around a large world map strewn with colorful pins. Nnenna placed the final pin at Tokyo, completing the global circuit. "We are no longer bound by borders," she declared. "Cradle of Courage is one world united." Global media outlets featured the story. CNN, BBC, and Al Jazeera highlighted the movement, sparking further support. Later that night, she posted on the blog, "Today we are 12 chapters in a global story. Thank you for believing." As messages of gratitude flooded in from every time zone, she whispered, "This is how change multiplies." And in that moment, the world felt both immense and intimately connected. Maya and Nnenna stood side by side on the stage of the annual Cradle of Courage Gala, their small hands gripping the polished wooden podium. 6 years old, they wore matching dresses, one in soft lavender, the other in pale pink, and their eyes shone with a mixture of excitement and pride. The grand ballroom fell silent as they prepared to speak. "Good evening," Maya began, her voice clear and steady. "I am Maya." She smiled at the audience of dignitaries, volunteers, and benefactors. "And I am Nnenna," her sister added, her tone confident despite her tender age. The crowd leaned forward, captivated by the sight of the twins, daughters born in a storm of resolve, now stepping into the light. Maya continued, "Our mother taught us that courage means sharing your story, even when you feel afraid." She glanced at Nnenna, who nodded vigorously. She showed women that they deserved to be heard. Nnenna's voice softened. "So we want to thank you for helping our mom and all the women she serves." A steady hush settled over the room before applause rippled like waves. Auntie Nwaka, seated in the front row on a specially reserved chair, wiped tears from her eyes. Dr. Ikenna beamed proudly, and Ada clasped her hands to her chest. Nnenna watched from backstage, heart full. Maya's gaze swept the crowd. "When you stand up for someone who feels alone," she said, eyes bright, "you light a candle in their heart." Nnenna added, "When you listen, you give them wings to fly." The twins paused as the audience rose to their feet, cheers echoing. After the standing ovation, Nnenna joined her daughters on stage. She embraced them both, kisses fluttering on their cheeks. "I am so proud," she whispered. "You made us all believe in magic." Nnenna nestled into her mother's side, and Maya linked her arm through Nnenna's. Later, during the reception, guests mingled under crystal chandeliers. Ambassadors discussed funding, while volunteers exchanged stories of local impact. One philanthropist approached the twins, offering to sponsor centers in Southeast Asia. "You two are stars," she said, crouching to eye level. Maya grinned. "We want every woman to have courage." Nnenna nodded fiercely. "And a safe space to bloom." That night, online viewers tuned in, sending messages of admiration and hope across every continent. As the evening ended, Nnenna walked her daughters to the gala exit, where a gentle rain fell. The girls laughed, launching paper boats into puddles. Nnenna squealed as water splashed her shoes. Nnenna watched, grateful that her legacy would live on in their boundless compassion. At home, the twins settled into bed. Nnenna tucked them under the covers and kissed their foreheads. Maya whispered, "We did good." Nnenna yawned. "We helped people." Nnenna answered, voice soft, "You helped change the world." She closed their bedroom door and stood in the hallway, envisioning generations of women empowered by one mother's courage and two daughters' voices. She whispered to the night, "We will carry this torch together." The final chapter of Nnenna's journey unfolded not on a stage or in a meeting hall, but in the quiet corners of countless homes and communities around the world. In living rooms, hostels, and churches worldwide, people pressed play, wept, finding solace in a stranger's story. One afternoon, Nnenna scrolled through her phone and saw a notification that made her heart skip. A tweet from Oprah Winfrey. It read, "Watch Cradle of Courage. It may make you weep, but it will heal you too." The official blue checkmark next to Oprah's name seemed to glow. Within minutes, view counts exploded into the tens of millions. The hashtag Cradle of Courage trended in multiple countries. News outlets ran feature articles. CNN's evening segment showed clips of Maya and Nnenna's speech. BBC World News interviewed Ada in Nairobi. Al Jazeera spoke with volunteers in Rio de Janeiro. Even local radio stations in remote villages invited community members to share how the movement had touched their lives. Every broadcast, every post magnified the ripple effect of one woman's courage. Church congregations played the film at Sunday services, turning pews into theaters of healing. A Catholic priest in Manila called the story a modern-day parable of compassion. An imam in Istanbul recited passages from the Quran alongside clips of Nnenna's speeches, emphasizing mercy and solidarity. A rabbi in Tel Aviv organized a communal viewing, linking stories of ancient women's trials to new narratives of empowerment. Messages poured in, crossing languages and borders. "My daughter doesn't feel broken anymore," a mother in Buenos Aires wrote. "I found hope after my miscarriage," shared a teacher in Vancouver. A refugee camp counselor forwarded a file, saying screenings had reduced self-harm incidents. Each message felt like a seed taking root in fertile ground. Nnenna watched these developments from her home office, walls lined with letters and gifts from supporters. She felt awe at the magnitude of change. She tapped into a video conference with her global team. "Our story makes the world cry," she began, voice thick with emotion. "But from those tears we grow stronger." Smiles and tears appeared on screens around the globe. That evening she stepped onto her balcony and gazed at the Lagos skyline glittering below. The sounds of traffic were distant, the city's pulse softened by the night. She closed her eyes, remembering the empty cradle, the divorce letter, and the first hospital visit. Her journey had come full circle. Back in her living room, Maya and Muna sat watching the documentary's final moments. They pointed at the screen. "There's Grandma," Maya exclaimed, recognizing Auntie Nwaka's healed smile. Muna took her mother's hand. "Mommy, we did this." Nnenna hugged them, whispering, "No, my loves, you did." In that embrace, she felt the culmination of every struggle and every triumph. The world had cried with them, and through those tears, had discovered its capacity for empathy. Nnenna realized that the story that makes the world cry is, ultimately, the one that unites us all in humanity. Liked it? Thumbs up, subscribe, and join the AfriHeart fam. Your support fuels our stories. Until next time.